From Stuck to Scaled Growth Strategies for Small and Mid-Sized Businesses. Your guide to navigating growth, transformation, and success in today's ever-changing business landscape. Each week, we'll dive into proven strategies, real-world case studies, and actionable insights designed to help small and mid-sized business owners scale smarter, lead stronger, and grow faster. Let's get you unstuck and on the path to sustainable, scalable success. Now your host, Julio Gonzalez.
Welcome back to From Stuck to Scale. I am your host, Julio Gonzalez, and today we're going to talk to an excellent individual, an author. Her name is Laura Farkas, and if you think business is tough, Laura had a physical issue come up where she went blind. Imagine having to deal with growing your business, running your business, and now all of a sudden you've lost your sight and you're trying to work through that as you continue to execute your business. But Laura has been very successful at that, and despite her blindness, she has pivoted, she has grown, and today we're going to hear her story, talk a little bit about her books. So get ready to really learn about breaking through business challenges with our guest, Laura Farkas. So let's welcome Laura to the show. Welcome, Laura. It's so great to have you here.
Oh, lovely to be here, Julio. Thank you.
Tell our listeners a little bit about yourself and your business.
Right, so I did run Elements Marketing. We started off as a general marketing agency, sales funnel agency last year because of what you just mentioned, going blind. I just had to literally think outside of the box because there was no way I could carry on with the hustle, with the content creation, with everything else I was doing within the business. And that's when I realized that it's the system that I've got to fix it. So I was literally blind for about 18 months. It was going downhill from a cataract surgery, which had a side effect, a secondary cataract, and a waiting list, basically, to get it fixed, which would have been a 5-minute job if they did it. So by the time I actually had the operation, my right eye was hand movement only. So literally, you can't drive, you can't even go shopping, you bump into things in the shop. It was that bad. Before I went fully blind, I did actually still work on the computer, but I said it's not sustainable. It is something that is tied to my activities, and I think you are a systems thinker as well, and you think about the organization. I said, I just need to build a better system so I don't have to do that much of activity, and that's what I did. And basically, there's a happy ending because I had the operation just 11 months ago. The whole world opened up again. And because most of my brain power was literally tied up in navigating and seeing things and correcting the picture, all that brain power just hit me completely. So I went ahead and I wrote my first major book in 3 months.
That is an insane timeline because a lot of authors take a couple of years.
Yeah, it was just a surge of energy. It was just like a power surge in my brain or something. It was just, I think by the time I got my vision back, I had the system in my head. So it just had to come out.
So tell us a little bit about the before versus the after in your business.
Well, the before was, I would say, full of frustration sometimes. So we did attract the right type of clients most of the time. However, the problem we had was you can build the most elegant funnel and the best automations, but if the clients, for example, if the client's contact form is so not user friendly that you've got to scroll down 50 services to find that one service, it's never going to convert. And trying to explain it to somebody who just doesn't understand that it has to be fixed, and you're just going to spend a lot of money on advertising, just made me sometimes quite frustrated. And I said, look, I could fix it, but it's not in my contract. So what can I do to actually help these type of people who actually don't understand how it all ties together, the sales, the marketing, the user experience, the website, even the reputation management, which is very important. So how does it all tie together? And that's when I decided I'm not going to be offering any more standalone services, not even funnel building. I mean, we were the number one sales funnel agency for years and years in the UK, and we got the awards, but I just cut it off. I just said, no, I can't do that. I need to fix the system because it's all about revenue. So marketing's main goal should be to generate revenue in a profitable way. And you can't do it if the rest of the business is not aligned. It's like how I normally see things is and that's in the beginning of my book as well, that every business is a puzzle, like a jigsaw puzzle.
Mm-hmm.
And there's always one missing piece. And I love finding missing pieces, and that's what I'm the best at. And sometimes it takes me 15 minutes to identify it, but it will just skyrocket the business. So it's less activity, more systems thinking. That's how it changed into consultancy.
I love this term that you use of the Frankenstack, because so many businesses love to just throw tools in, and this is a great tool for that, and that's a great tool for the other thing, and we can integrate everything together. And yes, integration is wonderful, but sometimes less capable tools that fully integrate or are part of a package are better than just this Frankenstack of tools. Talk to us a little bit more about that.
Well, my life mission at the moment is to kill as many Frankenstacks as I can. Because they truly damage the businesses. And the problem I see is that most businesses and SaaS industry is just like, well, I wrote about it in my LinkedIn newsletter. I can see that there's too many SaaS businesses with too much money to spend, and they don't really care if they make money or not. Even AI companies are not going to be profitable in the next 5 years, like the big ones. So they don't care, but they are pushing all these generic tools that are just half-baked things. So if you put that on top of your existing infrastructure and give it to a junior, because I can see a juniorization of the marketing roles as well. They can set it up because it's all AI powered. They press 3 buttons and it's done. But they don't really have the experience, the knowledge, or the strategic thinking to say, okay, how can we feed this back to the sales team? How can we actually gather the feedback from customers? How can we build on our reputation from this? They don't think like that. So eventually, it's just going to be a lot of trendy and fun, disconnected tools that don't do anything for the business.
It's funny because I was listening to a podcast just this morning around investing and SaaS companies, and it is no longer, or probably hasn't been for a while, but it is no longer about producing a saleable product. It is about making an investable company that happens to have a product. So we've got, like you were saying, all of these cool technologies that are being thrust our way, that frankly are cool, right? But is there that great long-term value if it's not, part of a broader package and an ecosystem, and you're dependent on just, that third-party integration? So, yes, there's some really incredible tools out there, but I look for that thread across the entire stack to be able to make my life easier. And I ran into this recently. I did a customer consultation, very small, med spa is what it was. And the guy's telling me, oh, because we have this electronic health record system for our patient, and then we have Stripe for billing, and then we have this for the other thing, and we have an overnight. And I'm just like cringing as he's telling me all of this, because as an operations person, all I hear is cost, cost, cost. The integration, yes, is a problem, but for a very small organization that doesn't have the cash flow, when the core platform that they're using for patient management has all of that built in, and again, is it the best? No, it's probably not the best, but it's there. It's simple, right? And so many business owners don't think about that way, and I always tell my customers, what is your core business, right? And you are not, a software company. You are a manufacturing company. You're a service company, and I'm having this argument with a friend who's also a customer, because he wants to build a customer portal. And it's like, with all of the platforms that are out there for customer portals, why would you go build your own? You're not special enough for that, right? And I see the frustration in your face, so I know you get it, but tell our listeners a little bit more about how that impacts them, even just from a marketing and funnel perspective.
Yeah, so basically what I can see, and I'm not against SaaS companies. I mean, I've got to say that Elements Marketing is a Score App partner, a Typeform partner, an Active Campaign partner. So it's not that we hate them. Absolutely not. But I can see that people just buy because it looks easy. So they will buy the software and they have no clue. And this happened to us quite a lot because there's not many integration partners on the Score App platform, and we were one of the first agencies to try it out, which is really good for some of the niches we use it. Perfect quiz marketing, I write about it a lot. But because we are on the portal, we had these inquiries saying, "Oh, can you set it up? I've got everything set up. I just can you just set it up?" And I said, well, it's got to be integrated, right? So what do you want us to do? Oh, we've got the questions, we've got everything, you just have to set it up. I said, okay, this is the link to fiverr.com, and you can get a college student to do that, because that's not what we do. Like pressing buttons, and that's the general mindset, that people think, oh, it's pressing buttons. And I had the same frustration about 10 years ago with ClickFunnels when people said, oh yeah, I just click on that template, I implement that, I change my colors, and the money is going to flow. And after 18 months they came to us saying, oh, I've been paying for ClickFunnels for a long time and I've never made a sale. I said, what? It's not ClickFunnels' fault. Like, you had no strategy behind it. Pressing 3 buttons is not going to make the money flow. And unfortunately, this is something people still believe in.
So you're listening to the From Stuck to Scale podcast, and we're speaking with Laura Farkas around marketing and funnels and the evolution. Laura, what are companies failing at today? We're I think moving past funnels really, and what are, if you were to talk to a new business owner, and tell them, this is the right way to do it, what should they be doing that in the past was like, yeah, no, that doesn't work
anymore? Well, I have experienced recently, especially in the B2B area where we work with business owners, I have noticed that B2B clients are more savvy. So So the generic free download or lead capture page and all those landing pages that used to work, they no longer work. And even notice that the quiz funnels, people see freedom and they say, oh, yeah, you just want my email address. I'm not going to give it to you. I'm not that interested. So I think the hardest thing is to establish yourself as an expert and genuinely help out before you would actually ask for something. So recently we have changed our website and most of our pages, and my LinkedIn and our LinkedIn links, they don't go to a lead capture page because I don't want to work with anyone and everyone really, and I'm not after numbers. So what we're doing now is we're giving value. So we put our own code of calculator on the website saying, okay, so do you want to see what's your potential? And do you want to see in real numbers how much money you're leaving on the table? Because you don't have a revenue system. So it compares between no funnel, a funnel, and a fully integrated revenue system. And they see their own numbers. They just pull the sliders. And I don't want their email address. I don't want anything of them. They are big enough to decide themselves. And I think that's where marketing is going in 2026 because of AI automation, because of the bots, the robocallers, the cold emailing, everything. People are just like so frustrated with the generic messages. You've got to talk about their problems, and I think you might have the same kind of type of question when you speak to your clients, Julio. When I speak to someone and say, okay, I don't want your demographics of your ideal clients, that's boring. Can you answer me one question? What's keeping them up at night? Why are they waking up at 2 o'clock in the morning in cold sweat? Because if you can solve that problem, then they are interested. If you're trying to sell them features instead of their optimal future, it's never going to work. So it's a shift to their problems instead of banging on your chest saying I'm this big.
Yeah, and to that point, I think the psychology of sales hasn't made it from real life face to face to, let's call it web, right? So the landing page where you're doing, where you're capturing, the information. Because when you look at, the better retailers, they don't welcome you and ask you how they can help you anymore, right? They welcome you and tell you, I'm over here when you need me, right? Because the immediate answer is, I'm just looking, right? Because psychologically, I don't want to expose the fact that I am actually looking for something or
Exactly.
shopping. I just don't want to be bothered. When I find it, then, hey, Laura, can you help me find the right size or color, whatever the case may be. But when it comes to going to different, websites, I need to get your information and call you, and I'm that guy. If I feel sorry if anyone has the domain b.com, because I am at b.com. For anybody that sees that show up, that was probably me on your website. Because I don't want to deal with it. I just signed up for something this morning. It's like, I know I'm going to get the phone call. Say, no, give me value. Show me why I want to do business with you, why I want your product. Like you said, be the expert. And so many, websites and companies are still, in the, I need to grab onto you, and talk to you to show you. And I love the fact that you say that you're not looking to work with everyone. I'm very much in the same boat. I am selective with who I work with. And I think that if a lot more companies thought that way, everyone's marketing message, would change.
Yeah, you just arrived to something which I think is kind of a half lie in the marketing industry, and everyone's still quoting that marketing's a numbers game. But I think it's not. I don't think you've got to collect numbers. I think you've got to collect intent. That's what you've got to capture, not their email address.
And I think if it were qualified, it would be a little bit different, right? Because for commodities, yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
You need the numbers, right? If you're in a commodity, if you're selling a commodity product, you need to get 1,000 people an hour on the phone or whatever the case may be. But when you're selling B2B, generally speaking, unless you're selling cleaning products, it needs to be a much more qualitative, sales process than what a lot of companies are still doing.
Yeah, and I can actually see that happening, chasing the numbers. Even in SaaS businesses, they just want, how many subscribers. They don't even care how much churn they've got, because the investors, how me and my marketing assistant put it recently is, they are drunk on investors' free bars. They don't care if they will ever make the money back or what that churn rate is really. So that's not how SMEs that you and I work with can operate. And I always say that, look, you're not Unilever. You don't have their budget. So you've got to be the sniper. You can't use a shotgun and just go out wide, because your budget's going to go very, very quickly.
So how do you approach I don't have to put it as a smaller versus larger company, or less mature versus more mature, but you've got different types of customers. How do you differentiate your approach, and how do you categorize those customers?
I would say that the clients we've had, funny enough, on the agency side, they transitioned naturally into consultancy. So it was the best thing for them and us as well, because they never really cared about how many hours you spend on their SEO. Like in a generic agency, they say, okay, you signed that, we will spend every month, we will spend 10 hours on your SEO. Yeah, your 10 hours, I will get it all done in half an hour. So that's just like, it's the value. Where's the value?
Right.
So obviously we do work with e-commerce clients, and on e-commerce, the most important question, there's two questions we ask them. One of them, do you know who's your most valuable top 10 buyer? And if they know, that's fine. If not, we've got to figure it out straight away. And normally it's just an active campaign integration, because it links to their e-com site and it links everything. And if I ask active campaign, is going to drop out 10 names without doing anything, like without doing research or having a spreadsheet even. And the other thing is, when we do like a new strategy, we say, okay, what would you like to sell more of? It's as simple as that. So that's an example for the active campaign and the e-com integration. We also have quite a few in the financial markets. So there it's all about trust-based. So they've got to be trusted, just like life coaches, business coaches, financial advisors. You do have to gain that trust, because no one's going to trust them with their livelihood, their money, without you actually showing them that you are trustworthy, you're the expert. So we will have to put in the reputation management massively. We've had an investment company for over 4 years now, and they started other businesses and they came back for the strategy on them, but that's a different story. They just love us. And their problem was they were well known in other countries, but they had to break into the UK. And in the UK, people are more skeptical and old school, and you've got to deal with the people, we call it the old money. So they are used to like, oh yeah, my grandfather had the estate managed by this firm kind of thing. So that was a massive learning curve for us to integrate reputation management and education into the entire strategy, because without that, it never would have worked.
One of the things I'm hearing as you're telling me this is we need new KPIs.
Absolutely.
What are some of the new measures that you're using? Because in the past, obviously, it was clicks and it was registered, back to that demographic grab and stuff. So, what are you looking at from a KPI perspective? What's the new KPI?
I would definitely say the intent. So you've got to measure the different points of intent signals. And that's very important, because that's how you identify, are they in the market? Because there's no point having 50,000 people on your list and neither of them ever considered to buy from you. They just came from that freebie that you gave away. There's no point. So it's very simple, and you know that, I know that, but most business owners don't know that you can so easily track, oh, who actually clicked on that link in that newsletter. Oh, find me the people who clicked on that link 3 times in the past 6 months. Okay, let's offer them a free consultation. Let's offer them something personal. Let's send out a presentation that's personalized to them. As I said, I do the sniper approach. So I'm not just going to go in and give the same generic message to everyone. So that's so easy. Measuring the intent signals is 100% something that you've got to think about, because it's got to be, the timing has to be right. And that takes me to one of the main messages of the book, which is linear funnels are dead. they just like, they are a myth. Because just imagine that you've got like a path to follow as a buyer. So you do this first, you do that next, that next, and that next. It would work fine if you were in a complete like empty space and nothing else happened around you. But unfortunately, things happen. You listen to a podcast, you speak to friends, you consume media on LinkedIn, and you get distracted. So you're not going to follow the straight line. But when you're actually interested and you're showing intent within that system, that's when marketers need to be on the ball.
And Laura, you've got 3 books. Is there, let's call it an order, or what was the evolution from 1 to 3 books?
I would say that my main system that came out of going blind is Paternoster Marketing. Now, that is a system level, quite high level book. However, I'm breaking it down at the moment. So that's what I'm doing. So I wrote Content is a Conversation after that, which is more of a generic guideline for people. 2026, content should not be shouting in the void and having like a shouting match with all the thousands of other people in your niche on LinkedIn, because you're never going to win that game because there's too many of them. So it's got to be all about a conversation, a genuine conversation. And that book is actually something I republished. I used to have that book under a different title on Bookborn, and it did actually earn me quite good royalties. So it was like a Netflix for books, basically. And they gave back the rights. I said, okay, let's update this for 2026. And that's when I realized that it's got to be a circular conversation instead of me just shouting at people. Pretty much what's happening now, unfortunately, with the cold emailing and the LinkedIn messages and the automated text messages and everything, no one's interested in it. And just like the original book, this book actually says that there is no such thing as a one-way conversation. So it does simplify the whole process, that you do absolutely have to optimize for conversations, not just like email addresses in your database.
And what about failing to scaling?
Yes, so that was basically a book that I recently republished. It contains most of the some of the most successful funnels we launched and automation. So some of them are a little bit complex, but there is always a case study behind it. So what was the main problem? Why was it not converting? How we changed the landing page? What automations we added? Things like that. So it's more about like, yes, a funnel can help you, but you've got to put it in the middle and connect the dots and connect the other parts of the organization. And that's one of the things that I'm trying to fight with that book as well. I don't know. I've been around, so it's going to show my age. You remember when everyone was talking about SEO in the 2000s, and it was like a magic word, and everyone was talking about it. But if you asked 100 people, only one could have answered what it is. Same thing happened to funnels, unfortunately. So it's like a buzzword that everyone's talking about. And I did actually put out a post recently when I said that I think I applied it to marketing, not funnels, but it does apply to AI automation. It applies to everything. That it's pretty much like sex. People who know how to do it will shut up about it, and people who have no clue will shout about it. So I'm just trying to break that misconception that there is a new magic button. I press the 3 buttons on this funnel builder and the cache is going to roll in, because it doesn't work like that. You know that, and I know that.
And you've touched on AI a couple of times. And it sounds like a weird question, is AI helping or is AI hurting? And how do I best leverage AI in my marketing? Because it seems everyone is using AI, this is a very broad statement, to just generate AI slop to post. Mm-hmm. And that is obviously not getting anyone anything. So what's your take on AI?
I would say that AI helped me massively with organizing the book when I was writing it, but I specifically trained it. What I can see people do is they just prompt and paste. And that's the worst thing you can do. Because if you're just giving out generic, voiceless advice, no one's going to listen. It just goes over my head. I just like, everyone knows that give me something new or tell me something useful. So I do have a couple of AI agents I work with that I trained on Gemini. And one of them is the Oracle that helped me with the book, like organizing and everything. And what I always argue with them about is that they try to take over. So I always have this sentence: remember, I'm in the driving seat and you're the co-pilot. So find your place. Because they try to take over. Oh yeah, I know. Oh, I know everything. But they don't know everything because they don't have your 20, 30 years experience. They don't have your strategic thinking. They follow the prompt. So it does help if you know how to actually communicate with them and don't take everything for granted, and train them. So you've got to absolutely realize that they are not above you. Because some people, probably with no experience with AI or no industry experience, they will just take everything for granted because they don't know better. you always have to be critical of your AI agent. That's what I learned in the past 18 to 24 months.
I love your statement to your agent. I tell people I argue with ChatGPT and Claude all the time. Why are you throwing this back in here? I told you not to, bring this in. We changed the conversation, and I will argue with it. Tell it you're being dumb, and because
I do.
some of the things that it comes back with, it's like, how do we break this cycle?
Yeah. Sometimes I just tell them, okay, if you're not going back to the topic, I'm leaving and starting a new conversation, because it's just annoying. They're just so repetitive. So obviously you've got to have different tools for different things. I even created my own chief well-being officer. Right, so let's get back to the Frankenstein, because that made me think, because I do always wonder, does it happen on an organizational level? I know that two tools are disconnected, but from what I see, from my perspective, there's always a constant conflict in the C-suite, and everyone's blaming everyone else, and the sales team says, oh no, the marketing leads are bad, and the marketing says, no, you didn't follow the procedure. They say, oh, what procedure? So the communication, I think that's something you are dealing with on your level, so I would love to have your thoughts on that.
Yeah, Frankenstack is absolutely an issue, I think, at all levels in the organization. We talked earlier about, some of the more successful retail organizations, they've gotten the psychology. What a lot of businesses don't get is purpose, right? Simon Sinek wrote the book about why, or whatever, finding your purpose. But what is your organization's purpose, and is everyone on board, right? Because what you find in a lot of organizations is that they give lip service to, we are a automotive whatever company, but you've got all of the egos fighting internally, right? And that fight, I will boil down to dollars, right? So, who gets the money, and I need to justify my existence so that I get more money for what I need to do, right? So, my background is technology. So, it was always, how do I get more money to upgrade servers, put in a new network, faster internet speed, all of those things. And I was fighting for the same pool of money that sales was to get more salespeople, that marketing was to get more, advertising out there. But at the end of the day, it is one budget and one goal. And I think that if everyone understood their role in the organization better, there would be a lot more opportunity to find those synergies across the board. Because, you and I may need to have a conversation that for 2027, I need an extra 2% in my budget, for whatever. Can you sacrifice next year, and take that from your budget? Because, we know that the company budget is going to be flat year over year. We don't have those conversations in organizations. It's how do I succeed by making you fail, right?
Okay, so and dog.
Yeah, and that C-suite many times, most times, 80-20 rule, right, is not on the same page. They're sitting in the same room, but they're talking at one another, not to one another. They're not having those true conversations. So yes, to your point, marketing is fighting sales, is fighting operations, is fighting, IT, and then you've got finance trying to rope everybody together because they're trying to make sense of all of that, but they're not on the same page. And I've got a conversation coming up in a couple of weeks. I was asked to speak to a class of cybersecurity professionals. And one of the main things I'm going to tell them is, as a business leader, I don't care what you're doing, which sounds crazy, right? Because from a cybersecurity perspective, I need to know that you're managing firewalls and blah, blah, blah. Why are you doing it? What is the outcome that I, as the business leader, need to know from what you're doing? Because that business leader, doesn't want to know that, you've got a new antivirus and new firewall rules. They want to know that they're more secure, right? So if we have that business value conversation and everybody is truly on the same path, then I think there's a much better opportunity to have, that conversation that is bringing the value to the organization and to the customer base, right? Because if you're doing things because and there's a season for everything, right? There's a season for we need to invest in the company, right? It needs to be all about us. And there's a season for it needs to be all about the customer. But you need to do that purposefully, and everybody has to be on the same page, and the communications is critical. So that's a conversation that I have, especially with the smaller businesses, because they have the opportunity to do it right.
Yes.
Because they may be a 12-person shop, and if you can't get your communication straight in a 12-person shop, you're not going to be able to get it when you're 1,200. So that foundational work to really get your purpose, the meaning behind the work that you're doing, and I'm not trying to be all existential. We all want to make money, right? We start a business because we want to make money. But if all you're doing is I want to make $20 million in this business, and you're not looking at the bigger picture, it's not going to work, right? Because everybody's going to see through that. And you need to have a purpose as an organization. There needs to be value, societal value, behind that in some form. But having that foundation for your business, having the entire organization, I was going to say the leadership team, but really it's the entire organization, has to be on board and really get it in their hearts. I had a friend that, because I'm a very logical person, and she would tell me, you need to get it out of your brain and bring it down to your heart. You really have to embody, you have to live, the purpose, the mission of the organization. And when everyone is truly on board, you can do some really magical things. So I think if you can have some of that conversation with your customers, and maybe seek those that are more, collaborative in that sense, you'll find a very different customer base.
Exactly. That's a really, really good point. So you're going in from the shared value angle, and what I'm hearing is it's more than challenging to go in a bigger organization and dismantle that lack of communication and rebuild it. And that's exactly what I find with the revenue systems. They say, oh yeah, it's all right, it's still making some money, it's broken at places, and it doesn't really matter, it's too much hard work. So do you get that with a larger organization saying, oh yeah, I know, shared alignment and realignment and shared values and everything, too much hard work?
Yeah. But you have to do the hard things at some point.
You do.
And yes, the bigger that you get, the harder change becomes. But that's where you have the opportunity to do what I call a tiger team. Take some of your best people, bring in some great execution folks, and break them off from the day-to-day. Let them focus on the new. Let's get the new in place, and then evolve the rest of the organization to that. When I was at a large transportation company, we had a team locked behind closed doors for 2 years, building an entire new platform, because the old platform was 20 years old, highly customized to the environment, and it couldn't evolve. So the only way to do that was to have that tiger team focused on that new, and they had to be totally isolated, because what happens? Oh, there's these people over here, we can just, ask them to help out, and that never works, right? So for smaller organizations, get your foundation right, For larger organizations, grab a tiger team. And for the ones in between, it doesn't have to cost a lot of money and it doesn't have to take a lot of time. If you've got a roadmap in place, how do you eat an elephant? A bite at a time.
Exactly.
You just have to be consistent and purposeful, and you will get the change that you're trying to get.
I do get that. So I did explain to you, like, I can see a parallel between what we are doing. So
Absolutely.
obviously when I got rid of a Frankenstack, I got rid of the waste. I completely eliminate the waste in their marketing budget. They're not just throwing money at things and get nothing back. So that's the main benefit, and that's what I'm trying to show on the website calculator. How do you translate what you are doing when the teams are completely aligned into what disappears that is holding the growth back and holding the real potential back in an organization?
I'll tie that back a little bit, at least, to AI job loss, right? That's what everybody's talking about. So many jobs are going to disappear, and yes, eventually a lot of jobs will disappear. But the opportunity when you go through, one of these realignment exercises and AI implementation, what a lot of companies are finding is, yes, AI is saving a lot of time, and it's still not freeing people up, right? And what the reasoning behind that is that we all have a huge backlog of things that just haven't gotten done. So now all of a sudden we have time to get to more of that backlog. And one of the things that I think a lot of companies are missing is the opportunity to really impact the customer experience. So as you realign, as you implement AI, how about taking some of those resources that maybe you would have reduced and refocus them on customer facing conversations? When was the last time that one of our listeners picked up the phone and said, Laura, you came to see us yesterday, or we just finished a project with you yesterday. How did it go? Did you get what you needed out of that project? How could we have done it better? Instead of something from SurveyMonkey or some other tool, rate us. Now, that conversation will get you a million times better response than anything that you would get from just an online survey. And the value it will create, in that relationship, with the customer, because the customer is going to say, wow, they actually cared enough to pick up the phone and call.
Yeah.
Now, so reallocate some of those resources that are being freed up to value generating areas and activities, and then eventually, either you grow without having to add headcount, or if you reduce through I forget what the term is, but as people leave, just attrition. Thank you. You just reduce through attrition, but there's so much capability in existing resources to leverage them better. In your case, since you're talking, a technology stack, maybe you can refocus that to additional marketing dollars. You take it out of the tool and you put it into the content. On the operations side, you're reducing certain workloads, reallocate those to more value generating workloads.
Okay, that does make sense, and it's really funny that you mentioned those conversations with customers, because I was recently in a podcast and we agreed that if there was a stock market back in 2019 for human interaction, and I invested and I cashed out right now after COVID, after AI, I would be set for life pretty much, because the value of human interaction has gone up so much since all the things that happened in the past 7 years. that it's sometimes you literally just have to have a conversation with people, because they will say, actually, that's a real person. That's not an AI bot. Hooray! I will listen to them. Or they are generally just sitting in front of the computer. I do that sometimes all day, and they don't really speak to anyone because they are focused on projects. So it's a welcome break to actually have a conversation with a living, breathing human being.
And companies don't realize the reason I don't want to pick up the phone, the reason I don't want to talk to you, is because you are not having a genuine conversation with me. You are thanking me for your business. You are asking me if you were satisfied, but then there's that, how can I get more, right? And if you just leave it at thank you, you will get so much more value from that. Everybody knows that you want more business from me. I get it, right? But give me some credit, to just thank me for my business. We appreciate that you came to us and that you trusted us enough. We'd love to see you again. Not when can we call you next?
Exactly.
And I think that if there's some of those, I'll say, more subtle approaches to business generation, things could be very different. Because if I don't recognize the number, I now have the Apple preview calls. You better provide a really good message for me to pick up the phone. Because all I get is your loan's pre-approved, and or worse, I got one the other day. It's Nate. I have no idea who you are, Nate. Why would I answer the phone? When you already can tell that I've got the preview taking place. Give me some reason for me to answer the phone.
Exactly.
When I'm done, doing business with you, give me some reason for me to come back. My doctor that I was going to, I didn't want him as a customer. Let me put that out there. But I told him, I said, my birthday was last week. Where was my birthday text? You've got a CRM that has automation built in. I know it's coming from your CRM, but at least if I got the text, this doctor's office thought enough to, put in their workflow to send a birthday text to people. Why didn't you put that in?
Yeah.
Oh, the CRM company didn't do the work, and it's like excuses.
Yeah.
So there's room for automated messaging. There's room for personalized messaging. That as you free resources up, reallocate those to more human interaction, because that's really what's going to be left.
Exactly.
All the AI agents and slop and everything else. At some point, the focus will be fully back on human communications. So take that up now.
I think you're right. I think people are actually craving that human interaction, and I do know from myself. I recently changed my accountant, and I wanted to sit down face to face across the desk with someone, because I said I had bad experiences. I wanted to look you in the eye and make sure that you're going to do what you said you're going to do. The same with mortgage advisors. There's so many companies who say, oh yeah, you can apply here, you can apply here. No, they just want my email address and sell it to 500 brokers. I will choose the right person, walk into their office, sit down in their office, drink their coffee, and have a chat about, this is what I'm trying to do, how can you help me? So I do notice it on myself as well. It might be my age, I don't know. But I can see it on my daughters as well, who are in their 20s, that they'd rather actually have a chat.
Yeah, I remember, and obviously there's differences in the healthcare system between the US and the UK. But the first time I went into a new doctor and I got sat in their office to have a face-to-face conversation, clothes on, no stethoscopes and stuff, I felt uncomfortable. I felt like I got called to the principal's office, and it's like, why are we here? I'm used to the 15-minute interaction, and check your breathing, check your heart, check your pulse. Okay, thank you, move on with life. And to actually sit down and have a meaningful conversation around my medical history and things like that, it was like, whoa, this is odd. So that authentic, conversation, if you can build that into your business, can be truly transformative.
Exactly. I think we are moving towards human conversations more, and the value of it is because that's the only way you can prove that you're not an AI bot. And
absolutely,
if I actually have people on my what Russell Brunson calls I call it the Empire List, but it's the Dream 100, he calls it. People who I really genuinely think I can have, and I get in touch with them and say, just to say I'm a human being, or I send them a letter with something in it. So because in AI can't post a letter, because they are so fed up with all the AI generated automated messages that they are just too scared. And I actually did a video about that, which was funny. It's about the robo-hounds. So the CEO sitting in the glass office, in the corner office, and hiding, and the robo-hounds are trying to get through the glass. That's basically how most of the CEOs feel. So you do have to show that you're a human being.
Yeah, absolutely. So Laura, how can our listeners find you?
My main platform is pretty much LinkedIn. So I do have a LinkedIn newsletter. It's called Marketing Mastermind, where I rant about pretty much everything. Not really guru bashing, but I will do it one day. It's more about like how you can work smarter, how you can do your marketing better, and about being a business owner and the challenges of them, because you and me know that it's not that easy, not as easy as the gurus say. So LinkedIn is my main platform. Obviously, I've got a couple of books on Amazon as well. One of them is actually in Waterstones as well, in the printed edition. And the last thing is my website, marketingforall.website, which is pretty easy. So you can find out more about how we work, what we do, how we make an impact, what we believe in. And as I said, there's no lead captures on it, because we just broke up. Us and lead capture pages just broke up a couple of months ago.
Well, I hope you all enjoyed our conversation today with Laura. I know I did. I learned a lot. I'll have all the links to her information and at least the Paternoster book on the show notes, so please look for those. If you are looking at your marketing and thinking it's not working, take some of what Laura said into account. Talk to your marketing team and see how your marketing needs to evolve. Are you still using ClickFunnels? Are you still using capture forms and all that kind of fun stuff? It's time to rethink your marketing. Read Laura's book and maybe reach out and have that conversation with her. I'm sure that that you'll get a lot of tremendous value from that. Thank you so much, Laura, for joining us. I really appreciate your time today.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right. If you like today's show, please share with other business leaders, like and leave comments. Love to read what our listeners have to say, and we've even built some of those into some of our previous episodes. So like and share, and we will see you all next time.
You've been listening to From Stuck to Scaled, Growth Strategies for Small and Mid-Sized Businesses, produced by Opticution, LLC. For more information, tools, and resources, check out our website, www.opticution.com/podcast.